Welcome back to the channel, folks, where we dive into the wild, wonderful world of men transforming into women in all kinds of fascinating ways. If that's your vibe, don't forget to smash that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Now let's jump right into today's story.
Chapter 6: Confessions, Catastrophes, and a Very Bad Room Key. The morning after a linen closet makeout session wasn't supposed to feel like a hangover unless you counted emotional whiplash, guilty adrenaline, and a constant need to readjust your bra. Jackie Monroe stood in the staff locker room, staring at her reflection in the mirror. Not the mirror, thank God, but the dull, streaky one above the sinks. She looked like a walking secret. Hair tousled, lips swollen, blouse slightly askew. "Well, Monroe," she muttered to her reflection, "at least you look thoroughly debauched. Very on brand for a woman who just had her boss's tongue down her throat." She ran her fingers through her chestnut waves, attempting to tame them into something resembling professional. Her body still hummed with the aftereffects of Charlie's touch, skin hypersensitive, nerves firing like New Year's Eve fireworks. Every sensation was heightened, from the slide of her silk blouse against her breasts to the lingering taste of Charlie's mint lip balm. Charlie had kissed her like she was the answer to a question she didn't know how to ask. Fierce, demanding, almost desperate, as if she could extract the truth from Jackie's lips through sheer force of will. And then she'd walked away. Pulled back, straightened her blouse, finger-combed her hair back into some semblance of order. No promises, no goodbyes, just a look over her shoulder and a soft, heart-wrenching, "I'll see you later." Jackie had no idea if that meant in bed or in HR. "At this point, I'd take either," she sighed, dabbing concealer under eyes that looked both brighter and more vulnerable in her new face. At least it would be a decision. She heard the locker room door swing open and quickly busied herself with applying lipstick, a skill she was still mastering. Martine, the statuesque French housekeeper, swept in with an armful of clean uniforms. "Bonjour, ma belle," she greeted Jackie with a knowing smile. "You look well-rested." Jackie nearly smeared lipstick across her cheek, just catching up on sleep. "Is that what they call it now?" Martine replied, hanging the uniforms with military precision. "Strange. When I saw you and Miss Harrington emerging from the linen closet separately but within 3 minutes of each other, I thought perhaps you were," inspecting the thread count. Jackie felt heat rush to her face. This blushing business was really getting old. In her previous body, embarrassment had been a private affair. Now it was a public announcement system. "I don't know what you're talking about," she said, attempting dignity while frantically checking her blouse buttons to ensure they were all in the correct holes. Martine laughed, a rich, throaty sound. "Of course not. And I did not see Miss Harrington's lipstick smudged at the corner of her mouth, either, nor her hair disheveled in a most unprofessional manner." Jackie groaned, burying her face in her hands. "Is nothing private in this hotel?" "Privacy is a luxury we don't stock, Sherry," Martine replied, patting Jackie's shoulder sympathetically. "But don't worry, the staff keeps secrets better than the walls do." "That's not exactly comforting," Jackie muttered. "It wasn't meant to be," Martine said cheerfully. "It was meant to be a warning. If you wish to continue your thread count inspections, perhaps consider somewhere less obvious than the executive floor linen closet." Jackie peeked through her fingers. "Any suggestions?" Martine's smile was positively wicked. "The roof garden shed is rarely visited after 10 p.m., and the old telephone booth in the West Corridor has a lock that still works. Both have served many urgent meetings over the years." Jackie couldn't help but laugh. "You're terrible." "I am practical," Martine corrected, "and somewhat envious. Miss Harrington is a beautiful woman, cold as ice usually, but apparently you found the flame beneath." She winked. "Bon chance, petite, you'll need it." With that cryptic farewell, she swept out, leaving Jackie alone with her smudged lipstick and jumbled thoughts. Jackie turned back to the mirror, studying her transformed face. It was still startling sometimes, catching her reflection unexpectedly. The delicate nose, the high cheekbones, the full lips that were now stained a subtle berry color. The face that looked back was undeniably beautiful, but was it hers? Was Jackie Monroe just a mask she was wearing, or was she becoming someone new entirely? And more importantly, Which version of her had Charlie kissed? Jake in Jackie's body or Jackie herself? Too deep for this early, she muttered, gathering her things. Coffee first, existential crisis later. Downstairs in hell, also known as the lobby, the Grand Marlowe was in full disaster mode. A senator's mistress had been spotted sneaking out of the sauna with the senator's wife. The ensuing shouting match had scattered spa patrons like startled pigeons, leaving the eucalyptus-scented sanctuary in chaos. A bachelor party in the 12th floor suite had set off the fire alarm with an indoor fireworks display. The sprinklers had activated, soaking not only the perpetrators, but also a visiting Saudi prince and his security detail in the room below. And someone, probably Tommy, had reprogrammed the keycards so that room 614 now opened every door on the executive floor. This technological nightmare was still unfolding, with guests entering wrong rooms with increasing frequency and decreasing patience. Jackie found this out the hard way when she tried to deliver a room service breakfast to room 606 and walked in on a naked financier doing yoga on the minibar. Mr. Hoffman, a 60-something Wall Street type with more body hair than seemed biologically possible, was folded into a position that defied both gravity and decency. "Oh my God," she yelped, slamming the door shut and clutching the tray to her chest like a shield. The orange juice sloshed dangerously close to the rim of its crystal glass. From inside came a cheerful, "Namaste." Jackie leaned against the wall, breathing heavily, trying to scrub the image from her brain. As Jake, she'd seen her fair share of naked hotel guests, occupational hazard of the hospitality industry. But something about experiencing it as Jackie made it feel more invasive, more uncomfortable. "I need brain bleach," she muttered, fumbling for her walkie-talkie while balancing the breakfast tray. "Tommy," Jackie growled into her walkie, "we have a keycard issue, a massive one." Tommy's voice crackled back, entirely too cheerful for the circumstances. "Massive, huh? Like how massive?" "I just saw a man do downward dog with his dong out." A pause, then, "Okay, yeah, that's pretty massive, impressive even." "Tommy," Jackie hissed, lowering her voice as a couple strolled past, eyeing her curiously. "This isn't funny. I've got traumatized eyeballs here. Fix the damn keycards before I'm subjected to more unwanted anatomy lessons." Tommy's chuckle filtered through the static. "Sorry, Jackie boy, I'm on it. But just for clarity, was it really that massive, or are you just not used to the comparative view from your new perspective?" Jackie felt her face flame. "I'm going to murder you, slowly, with a room service fork." "Kinky," Tommy replied, "but save it for the boss lady. Speaking of which, how's that going? Any progress on the guess who I used to be front?" Jackie sighed, leaning her forehead against the wall. "No, and I don't know how to tell her. Hey Charlie, remember that time you kissed me senseless in the linen closet? Fun fact, I used to be a dude who carried your luggage." An elegant throat cleared behind her. Jackie froze, a chill running down her spine. Slowly she turned. Charlie Harrington stood there, one perfect eyebrow raised, clipboard in hand, looking like a corporate fantasy in a charcoal pencil skirt and blood-red blouse. "Ms. Monroe," she said, her voice cool and professional, betraying nothing of last night's passion. "A word when you have a moment." Jackie's voice came out as a squeak. "Sure, yep, absolutely, just let me, she gestured vaguely with the tray, nearly upending the entire breakfast. Charlie nodded once, crisp and businesslike. "My office, 15 minutes." She turned and walked away, her heels clicking a sharp staccato against the marble floor. Jackie couldn't help but notice the perfect sway of her hips, the confident set of her shoulders. "Oh God," Jackie whispered to herself, "I'm so screwed." Tommy's voice crackled through the walkie. "What happened? You went silent." "Charlie just heard me," Jackie hissed. "She heard me talking about being a dude, and the linen closet." There was a significant pause, then Tommy's voice, uncharacteristically serious. "Well, buddy, looks like the jig is up. Time to face the music." Jackie closed her eyes, wondering if Mrs. Bellamy's magic could transform her one more time, preferably into something without a central nervous system. A sea sponge, maybe. Sea sponges didn't have to explain gender transformation to their bosses. "I'm dead," she said flatly. "Nice knowing you, Tommy." "Look on the bright side," Tommy offered. Maybe she'll be into it. Some women like a good supernatural gender swap romance. Name one, Jackie challenged. Well, there was this movie I saw once, but I think it was Japanese, and there were tentacles involved. Jackie turned off the walkie. Upstairs in Charlie's office, Charlie Harrington was not in the mood for mysteries today. Her inbox was a war crime. Her phone wouldn't stop buzzing. And she just had to personally apologize to the senator's wife for the unexpected sauna situation, which had involved a lot of diplomatic smiling while avoiding direct references to what exactly the senator's mistress had been doing to the senator's wife when they were discovered. But worst of all, she couldn't stop thinking about Jackie. Something didn't add up. Not just the missing HR file or the suspicious knowledge of her favorite pastry, almond croissants, but only from the bakery across town, never the hotel's inferior version. Jackie felt familiar, like déjà vu with breasts, like someone she'd known for years, not days. And those eyes. There was something in those emerald depths that resonated with her on a level that couldn't be explained by mere physical attraction. A recognition, a connection that felt both new and ancient. Charlie rubbed her temples, willing away the tension headache that threatened to bloom behind her eyes. Get it together, Harrington. You're not a teenager. You don't fall for someone after one kiss. Even if that kiss had been earth-shattering. Even if she'd lain awake half the night, replaying it in her mind, feeling phantom hands in her hair, on her waist, sliding along her. Stop, she commanded herself, straightening the already perfect stack of papers on her desk. Focus on what matters. Like the fact that your mysterious new employee might be hiding something significant. Like the fact that she distinctly heard Jackie mentioning being a dude in the hallway. Charlie had initially dismissed it as misheard, but combined with Jackie's other oddities. Her unexplained familiarity with the hotel, her knowledge of Charlie's personal preferences, the way she sometimes moved as if still adjusting to her own body, it painted a picture that was increasingly difficult to ignore. Just then a knock. Jackie peeked in, holding a folder and an expression that said, "Please, don't fire me for knowing how to unhook your bra with one hand." "Got the updated guest list you asked for," she said, stepping inside, her movements cautious, like someone approaching a sleeping lioness. Charlie gestured to the chair across from her desk. "Close the door." Jackie hesitated, her eyes flickering to the door like she was contemplating escape. Then, visibly steeling herself, she closed it with a soft click. Charlie stood, all sharp lines and tension. Her body hummed with a strange energy, part professional authority, part lingering desire, part growing suspicion. "We need to talk." Jackie's stomach flipped visibly, her hand moving unconsciously to her midsection in a gesture that struck Charlie as oddly vulnerable. "About the kiss." Charlie crossed her arms, partly as a shield against her own conflicted emotions. "About you." Jackie swallowed, the delicate column of her throat moving in a way that Charlie found distractingly appealing, despite her determination to remain focused on the matter at hand. Charlie held up a hand, unable to bear whatever half-truth or evasion was coming next. "Before you lie, don't. Just tell me what's going on. Who are you really?" The question hung in the air between them, heavy with implication. Jackie took a shaky breath, looked at the floor. Then, slowly, stepped forward, moving into Charlie's personal space with a determination that was both challenging and surrendering. "I'm Jake." Silence. Charlie blinked, the words not quite registering. "Excuse me." Jackie forced herself to meet Charlie's eyes, her gaze unwavering despite the tremor in her voice. "I'm Jake Monroe. I touched a cursed mirror in Mrs. Bellamy's trunk, and I woke up like this." She gestured down at her obviously female body, the curves clearly defined under her tailored blouse and skirt. Charlie stared, her brain refusing to process the information. No reaction, no movement, just pure, unfiltered disbelief. Jake, her bellhop, the gangly guy with the perpetual 5 o'clock shadow and terrible puns, the one who'd worked at the Grand Marlowe for years, blending into the background like living furniture. That Jake was now standing before her, in the form of this stunning woman, who'd made her question her professional boundaries and sexual orientation in the span of 3 days. "That's impossible," Charlie said flatly, though even as the words left her lips, pieces began clicking into place. The familiar mannerisms, the insider knowledge, the way Jackie sometimes looked at her, not with the interest of a new acquaintance, but with the accumulated history of someone who'd been watching from afar for years. Jackie rushed on, words tumbling out like she couldn't hold them back any longer. I didn't plan any of this. I thought it was a prank at first, then I tried to reverse it. But it's permanent. I am Jackie now, but I'm also still me. Jake, the guy who made your coffee when you were hungover after the Christmas party. The one who used to leave you those stupid post-it jokes by the front desk. Charlie felt her knees weaken, the solid ground of reality shifting beneath her. She sat slowly, like her body had made the decision without consulting her brain. You're serious? It wasn't a question. The look in Jackie's eyes, Jake's eyes, was too sincere, too vulnerable for this to be a joke or a delusion. Jackie nodded, a strand of chestnut hair falling across her face. She brushed it back with a gesture that was at once feminine and strangely reminiscent of Jake's habitual head scratch. Charlie stared at her, trying to reconcile the beautiful woman before her with the unremarkable man she'd barely noticed for years. You're saying I made out with my bellhop. Jackie smiled weakly, a flash of Jake's crooked grin appearing on her lovelier face. Technically, you made out with your bellhop while she was in a robe and stockings. The absurdity of it all hit Charlie suddenly, and she found herself torn between hysterical laughter and stunned silence. She settled for a long, unreadable look. Then, God, I knew you were familiar. No one else knows I hate the word moist. The admission broke some of the tension, and Jackie's posture relaxed slightly. Charlie stood again, unable to sit still with the energy coursing through her. She began pacing, her mind racing to process this impossible revelation. This is insane. This is insane. You're not even on drugs. Only estrogen, apparently, Jackie replied, with a hint of Jake's dry humor. And whatever magical hormones come with spontaneous gender transformation. Charlie stopped pacing, turning to face her. What? Employee, love interest, victim of supernatural body swapping? Why didn't you tell me? The question encompassed so much. Why didn't you tell me before I kissed you? Why didn't you trust me with this impossible truth? Why did you let me think you were someone new, rather than someone transformed? Jackie laughed bitterly, running a hand through her hair in a gesture that was pure Jake despite the feminine execution. Would you believe that your moody, unlucky coworker turned into a bombshell because of a magical antique mirror? She dropped into the chair, the fight seeming to drain out of her. I was scared, and I liked how you looked at me. The confession hung in the air, raw and honest. Charlie felt something in her chest constrict. As Jake, he'd been invisible to her, just another employee, barely registering on her radar. As Jackie, she'd been impossible to ignore from the first moment. Charlie's face softened, just a little, as the implications settled. You should have trusted me, she said quietly. Jackie nodded, her expression contrite. I'm sorry. I tried to tell you last night, but then you kissed me and I couldn't. I didn't want it to stop. Charlie hesitated, her mind still reeling with the impossibility of it all. Then, making a decision, she walked over and crouched beside Jackie's chair, putting them at eye level. I don't know what the hell this is, she said, eyes searching Jackie's face for traces of Jake, finding them in the quirk of her mouth, the slight furrow between her brows when she was anxious. But I know how you made me feel. And that kiss, that was real. Jackie's breath caught audibly, her eyes widening with hope. So, you're not going to call the exorcist? Charlie smirked, finding her equilibrium in the familiar rhythm of banter. Not unless you start speaking Latin. Jackie grinned, a flash of Jake's playful spirit shining through her transformed features. Et cum sexy chuo. Charlie laughed, the sound warming the space between them. That's not Latin. It is now, Jackie replied, her eyes sparkling with relief and something warmer. For a moment, they simply looked at each other, the air charged with possibilities. Charlie was struck by the strangeness of it all, falling for someone she'd worked alongside for years without really seeing, only to discover them in an entirely new form. It was like reading the final chapter of a book she hadn't realized she was in the middle of. So, Charlie said finally, breaking the silence, Jake Monroe became Jackie Monroe overnight because of a magic mirror, and Mrs. Bellamy is, what? A witch, a a fairy godmother with questionable methods. Jackie shrugged, the movement more graceful than Jake's habitual shoulder hitch. I have no idea. She's cryptic as hell. Every time I try to get a straight answer, she just smiles and says something about the right reflection and how I needed to see myself differently. Charlie stood, collecting herself. Well, I think it's time we had a talk with Mrs. Bellamy, together. Jackie looked up at her, hope and uncertainty mingling in her expression. Together, so you're not freaked out about all this, about me. Charlie considered the question carefully. Was she freaked out? Absolutely. Was she confused? Beyond measure. But beneath the shock and disbelief was something else, a curiosity, an interest, a pull toward this person who was both familiar and brand new. I'm processing, she said honestly. This isn't exactly covered in the management training manual, but I'm not running away, not from this, not from you. The smile that bloomed on Jackie's face was radiant enough to light the entire room. That's more than I hoped for. Charlie found herself returning the smile, drawn in by the genuine joy in Jackie's eyes. Don't get ahead of yourself, Monroe. We still have a hotel in chaos, a senator's marital drama, a soaked Saudi prince, and malfunctioning keycards to deal with. Your supernatural gender swap is actually the least of my problems right now. Jackie stood, straightening her skirt with a smoothness that suggested she was growing accustomed to her new body's movements. Well, when you put it that way, I guess magical transformation isn't so bad. It has its advantages, Charlie admitted, allowing her gaze to travel appreciatively over Jackie's form before she caught herself. I mean, from a professional standpoint, you handle the guests well. Jackie's knowing smirk suggested she wasn't fooled by the professional pivot. Is that what we're calling it now? Handling guests. Charlie felt a blush rising, an unusual occurrence for someone with her composure. Get back to work, Monroe. We'll discuss everything else later. Later, Jackie agreed, her voice dropping to a register that sent a shiver down Charlie's spine. I'm looking forward to it. She turned to leave, and Charlie couldn't help but notice the confidence in her stride, as if the weight of her secret had been lifting, allowing her to move more freely in her transformed body. Just outside the office, Tommy leaned against the wall in the corridor, eavesdropping with a grin that threatened to split his face. His ear was pressed to a glass tumbler held against the door, an old trick he'd learned from his grandfather, who'd been an enthusiastic spy on family arguments. Well, I'll be damned, he whispered to himself. She didn't freak out. Score 1 for Team Supernatural Romance. You owe me $20, he whispered to Mrs. Bellamy, who had appeared silently beside him, holding a teacup that seemed to contain something both steaming and faintly luminescent. The elderly woman sipped serenely, her violet eyes twinkling with ancient mischief. Oh, I never bet on love, dear boy, I guarantee it. Tommy nearly dropped his glass in surprise. How do you do that? Just appear out of nowhere like some kind of designer-clad ghost. Mrs. Bellamy smiled, the expression transforming her lined face into something timeless and knowing. Years of practice, darling, and sensible shoes despite appearances. She glanced down at what appeared to be vintage Chanel pumps. So you planned this? Tommy asked, gesturing toward Charlie's office. Jake becoming Jackie, the whole shebang. Mrs. Bellamy's smile deepened, cryptic as the Mona Lisa, but with better jewelry. I merely provided the mirror. The reflection reveals what's already there, waiting to be seen. Tommy scratched his head. That doesn't really answer my question. No, she agreed pleasantly. It doesn't, but answers, like properly aged wine, should never be rushed. She patted his cheek with fingers that felt surprisingly warm and vital for someone of her apparent age. Now, I believe you have some keycards to fix before our naked yoga enthusiast greets any more unwilling audiences. Tommy's eyes widened. How did you? But Mrs. Bellamy was already gliding away, her midnight blue dress swishing around her ankles, the small canary perched in her elaborately styled hair chirping once as if in amusement. Creepy old bat, Tommy muttered, though there was no heat in it. Effective, though. He pulled out his maintenance tablet, already plotting how to fix the keycard system while ensuring that the honeymoon suite on the 14th floor would mysteriously upgrade its in-room entertainment system. The newlyweds deserved a break, and so did his friends. Whether Jake or Jackie, his buddy deserved a shot at happiness. And if that happiness came packaged with a gender swap and a romance with the boss lady, well, stranger things had happened at the Grand Marlowe. Though not many.